This video is going to be my reaction to the Ravens' 28-25 win against the Cowboys in Dallas in Week 3. The Ravens figured out a way to get a win or let the clock run out, that is, get to a big lead, let the clock run out. I'm not sure about you, but thankfully we were able to possess the football and take a knee to finish the 60th minute, because I had every impression and thought that if the Cowboys were able to get the ball back on offense, that they were going to score, whether it was a field goal or a touchdown. I could be wrong there. This is not a fun defense to watch at all right now in these known passing situations. And it's kind of crazy, to be honest with you. It in some ways it resembles Mike McDonald's first year early in the season in 2022, that is, whereby we couldn't stop people in the fourth quarter when they decided to just go into ultra passing mode. It happened against the Bills in that rainy day loss at home. It happened against the Dolphins, obviously. At this point in time, whatever we do in those fourth quarter situations, we get eaten up. I did think that Humphrey and Stevens played well on the outside. At times we were doubling CeeDee Lamb and taking him away. With this rule set, I think you kind of have to at times. And I think it also says a lot about certain NFL offensive coordinators and play callers that it takes them so long to adjust at times when their number one option, in this case CeeDee Lamb, is taken away. This game reminds me of the win on the road last year against the Arizona Cardinals midseason, in that neither one is a really good football team, meaning the Cardinals last year or the Cowboys in 2024. No disrespect to the Cowboys. They certainly got some very talented players. It's an incomplete football team. They have no run game to speak of, number one. Very soft against the run. We saw that today. I think the Ravens ran for 274. We were fortunate in that it wasn't a 65 or 70-minute football game in both of those situations. So many things had to occur in order for the Ravens to only win by 3. I understand you may not share my negativity. And in fact, if you recall, there were many people who did not enjoy my negativity at all after that win against the Cardinals. This is similar, if you ask me. Things fall apart in the fourth quarter. The Cowboys scored 3 touchdowns in a row. Fortunately, we're able to defend the first 2-point conversion that fell incomplete to CeeDee Lamb. If not, the ending could have been drastically different. This defense has a long way to go. And I would say there's some guys not playing really well at all who are supposed to be. More on that later, where I go through kind of like some of my player reviews at the end. We'll let some of the game stats flow through. Ravens obviously finished with 456 yards of offense. They'll be number one in the league in offense again in terms of total yardage, I think. Average 7.6 yards per play. Henry runs for 151. 2 touchdowns on 26 carries. Just a real statement about what we have in Derrick Henry that's reliable, that we can go to. Well, we can go to at least when we run to our left. There was a clear difference, if you ask me, about direct runs to our left side versus our right. Lamar was 12 of 15 passing, had the touchdown to Bateman. Lamar also ran for 87 yards. Variety of schemes, zone read stuff. Closed out the game with a beautiful quarterback power read, which was an awesome call by Todd Monken in that situation. We're very fortunate for Zach Orr and Harbaugh that we were able to convert that and keep the football and kneel out the game in the victory formation, because I shudder to think what it would have felt like for all of us if we're 0-3. Additional to that, it shows a little bit of the fake preparation that NFL announcers do, that no one was able to quickly identify it. And I had high expectations for Tom Brady, so I'll continue to give him chances to be an enjoyable announcer. There are certain things he was able to cover. There are certain things that him and his broadcast partners had no interest in covering, and I'm talking about the refs. So one positive thing that has to be said about our coaching before I get into the negativity stuff is the game plan. The game plan clearly took into account that the Cowboys rush the quarterback better than they defend the run, and we made that hurt them. It helps our O-line in being able to get out on people, to attack in the run game. Look, do we have to get better in pass pro? Yes. I personally think that at this point that probably happens from outside the building. Unless Patrick McCarry can move over to right guard, I don't think the answer is what we put out there today. I just do not. So we've got to be able to present a different offensive focus from a position player standpoint, from a quarterback, running back standpoint, left side of the offensive line in the center. We can do that. We can be a power run team under center. We can be a shotgun run team, a zone read slash RPO reliant offense. I think we can get an 11 and 12 personnel and throw the football like we did a lot in the fourth quarter against the Chiefs. I love all of those concepts. They're all dangerous. But I think one complaint I would have about the offense is I think there are more complementary plays out there to use to build off of the things that were already working. So what I mean is we opened the third quarter with a dominant possession, and then we just fell apart. Yes, we had a terrible miss by Tucker early in the fourth quarter that hurt a lot. I think 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, something like that. But after we go up 28-6 on Henry's brutal 26-yard touchdown run, the offense produces 57 yards and 0 points on their next 3 drives. We did close out the game, fortunately. The game-sealing run by Lamar, brilliant read, sleight of hand, if you will. Those things, those replays came pre-installed when Monken got here. They can be used at any time. Because Lamar he knows what the read is, he knows how to react to it, and so there is this versatility of our offense whereby we can attack in a multitude of ways. I would have liked to have seen us use the play action pass a little bit more today, particularly when we're up 28-6. I don't recall the precise play calls at this point. It's on a different screen than my streaming screen that I'm using right now. So I would like to see us go up top at times. Some of the over concepts, which we did hit to Rashad Bateman. Mark Andrews was pretty much non-existent today in terms of a pass receiver. I think we could be more integrated with the things that we're doing, but when the run game is hitting a team that big, I understand you want to stick with it because it's being successful. Today, like I said, I was so negative after the game that I had to kind of sit down. I had to walk away and wait to do this recording. Like I said, some of you may recall my tone after the Cardinals win last year. Personally, I think the Cowboys are very unbalanced and exploitable, easily exploited in certain situations. Let's compare it to the teams that we're going to play in 2024, which is a very difficult schedule. They're just not very good. And to have nearly gave away one to a team like that is difficult to handle and difficult to remain positive about it all. I will speak on the refs here in a moment, but let's try to talk about the positives. The Ravens are able to jump out to a 21-3 lead in the first half. Thought they were playing behind Derrick Henry, playing behind the dual option read concepts with Lamar and Likely, where they're reading the edge defender, and the Cowboys didn't do a good job of that at all. When we tried to run to our right-hand side in a couple of short yardage situations, there just really didn't seem to be much there. Henry had a big half. He had the 51 rushing yards, a 23-yard gain on a screen on our fifth possession where we just went left-handed. The entire possession, ball's on the left hash. I think maybe I need to start documenting which hash the ball is on. But let's look at the first 2 possessions. The Ravens offense was able to get out on the Cowboys in the run game. You have Lamar keeping it on a dual read first play of the game for 12 yards. Then a QB counter read on the third play. It's a 2nd and 8. I thought perhaps Lamar misread it on the second play, but this is one of the difficulties in trying to evaluate any level of football, but specifically the NFL. We don't know what Lamar was told pre-snap or pre-huddle in his headset, number one. Number two, it could have just been a give. It could have been an auto give. So I'm talking about the second play, 1st and 10 from the -41. Give to Henry for 2 yards. I have it as a misread because the D-end, who is the read man, in fact, made the tackle. If the D-end makes a tackle, you misread it. Simple as that. So QB counter read on the third play, 2nd and 8 from the 43, goes for 18 to Hill. I thought Kohler did a nice job blocking today, and then he's the recipient of a play-action pass on the very next play. That was important because there have been times where when he's on the field, it's a run play. And when Likely and Andrews are on the field, it's a pass concept. So that run-pass ratio, if you ask me, is important for keeping those guys on the field. We go unbalanced. I think it's unbalanced on the 1st and goal from the 9. So we're unbalanced to our right, and back to the left side is just a guard and a tight end. I believe it's Andrews. And Likely's in the backfield with Lamar. Running back crosses his face. Lamar and Likely read it at the same time, and he keeps it around the left side for an easy 9-yard touchdown run. Took the Cowboys defense in the stadium by storm. Cowboys are able to get a field goal, I believe, on their second possession. And then the Ravens' second possession, we have the huge play to Nelson Aguilar. I think there was plays to be made against that defense in the pass game. I really do. I know that they've got Trayvon Diggs. Bland is out for a while. Supposedly he's going to come back at some point this year. I think there's plays out there against that Cowboys defense in the pass game as well. I'm confident in saying that if we had a little bit more ability to pass pro effectively along the right side, that the coaches would have felt more comfortable throwing the ball in some of those situations. But as it stands, we get the one big 56-yard gain to Aguilar along the right side. It's a little speed out against Kalen Carson, who's a Wake Forest guy, someone that I thought the Ravens were maybe going to look at. Now he's starting with Bland being out. and played pretty well up to today in terms of he's got stiff armed by Derrick Henry at one point. It's pretty high profile because it was in the middle of the field, and then Nelson Aguilar catches the speed out, breaks the tackle, and leaves him in the dust. Nearly scores. We're able to punch it in. Henry, the 1 yard touchdown run, puts us up 14-3. Cowboys offense at this point in time is just being held down completely. We did have some fortunate situations from a Ravens defensive standpoint. I'm talking about over the course of the day, but we also had bad luck as well. Let some of the picks flow through again here while I talk about this. 3 situations. Number one, when Wiggins forces the fumble on CeeDee Lamb. It was a slant where Wiggins is able to force the fumble. That's great. The play before that, Wiggins was beat on another slant by a different receiver. And when I say beat, he was beat by 2 yards. It was scary to see him in coverage today against those guys. I thought he was beat 4 or 5 times on multiple different types of route. But on this one, Lamb is open again. Wiggins forces the fumble inside the 10. We had another situation where Matabike obviously forces what I think is an intentional grounding sack by Dak Prescott. We had wasted, that's also additional to that, we had wasted an opportunity, I think, later on in the game where a short yardage play where we run a toss to our right to Derrick Henry, and then the ensuing punt is able to hit one of our defenders, I believe, one of our guys going downfield inside the 10. So some really unusual plays today. It's an NFL game. There's 60 snaps or 60 minutes, and multiple snaps per minute. So there's going to be some anomalous plays. I thought that the Ravens defense in the beginning, when the Cowboys were trying to be run pass balanced to an extent, we had the answers. Nonetheless, some missed opportunities for the Cowboys. There's a 3rd and 7 on, I think, the Cowboys' 3rd possession. Ezekiel Elliott wide open in the right flats. Looked like a zone blitz, and perhaps Ojabo is supposed to get out there and cover it. Zone dropping from the line of scrimmage. It ends up being a poor throw, I think, by Dak Prescott. So we're very fortunate to get a stop there because there's space for Elliott to get the first down. We're able to get the ball back thereafter, and with 3 minutes left in the second quarter, the Ravens go all left-handed. And I want to show you that drive just from the standpoint of the 6th column, which is direction, and that's play direction. I probably need to include a hash column somewhere in here. I'm running out of space at this point, but the direction of all of these plays was pretty much left. Henry was off an A-gun read, and I know that one was into the boundary. To our left, obviously, 11 yards. Then Henry, a counter to our left as well for 14 yards. The screens, dual screens, 2 in a row. One to Hill, and then the next one to Henry, which was a big one. I think it's interesting that we called screens, but it's inside of the 2-minute warning. So the Cowboys have this mentality, or most defenses, that we're trying to pass the ball. In this case, we ran twice and threw 2 screens. I know there will be people who will say the Ravens won a game where Lamar Jackson didn't have to do too much. I think the Ravens offense and their coaches are displaying for us their lack of confidence in the right side of the offensive line. And I think that's why the play calls were, some would say, conservative. And I don't know that I want to say conservative, but that's why they were so focused heavily on the run game, particularly to the left-hand side. But getting back to the 5th possession, 2 runs to the left, 2 screens to the left. We're operating completely off the left hash. There's a give to Henry off a dual read where he is set into the boundary. So he's set to our left. And the give is basically middle. That's why I put middle for direction. Lamar could have kept it to the top side if he got a keep read. Creates a 2nd and 7. Justice Hill with a pass play to the left again. Nearly got it. I have it as a gain of 8. Where I thought he got the first down. I believe that was a 3rd and 1 on the ensuing play, so it might be a mistake there where I have 1st and 10 from the 16. Perhaps I'm wrong. 2 completions to Bateman here on the next 2 plays, including the 2nd and 7 from the 13. I have Falele listed here as a good block in pass pro. So I don't exactly remember the play concept. I know that Lamar scooted out to his right a little bit, and credit to Bateman. It almost reminded me of the missed throw to Bateman/Flowers against the Chiefs in the end zone. You guys probably recall it at this point in time. Because Bateman is running from the right-hand side, it's trips, and he's running at the safety who's like kind of in the middle of the field. Bateman sees that the middle of the field is closed, and he immediately stops and brings his route back to the right, almost kind of up the right hash, if you will. And Lamar finds him quickly. It reminds me of that play against the Chiefs. So that's a good thing, if you ask me. An example of Bateman perhaps adjusting his route in the middle of the play, if you ask me. We had another fortunate situation late in the second quarter. I think it's inside of a minute left in the second quarter. And Wiggins, who I already said I thought really struggled today, he commits a DPI on Lamb. Well, at first, actually, there was a 31-yard gain by Lamb, I think, up the right sideline. So we left the same matchup available. I think that's the frustrating thing for this Ravens defense right now is there situations where a guy loses in coverage and we stay with it as if the other team's not going to go back to it. So a DPI was obvious on Wiggins. We're very fortunate to not give up a touchdown there on that last possession for the Cowboys because they would have had the ball first and goal from the 1. The DPI occurred in the end zone, but I think Oweh was held on the play. It was a clear win by Oweh against the left tackle, Guyton. I thought Guyton committed 2 or 3 more holds that were, questionable or perhaps could have been called. But as it stands, it was offsetting penalties, so they had to take the ball back to the original line of scrimmage. Cowboys settle for a long field goal that their kicker was able to convert, make it 21-6. To that point, the Ravens have outgained Dallas 272 to 169. And the crazy thing is, the Ravens had run 31 plays. And of those 31 plays, 15 of them were first downs. That's a remarkable statistic, if you ask me. Meaning the number of double-figure runs in the run game, and then 10-yard or more pass plays as well. 15 first downs on 31 plays. We're averaging 5.6 yards per rush at the half. Lamar's 10 of 11. Kind of incredible. Yes, Lamar benefited from the run-heavy game plan. The throw to Aguilar against Carson, to me, illustrates that we could have gone over there a little bit more. Up 21-3 and then 21-6 at the half. Look, those stats actually for the first down to total play ratio, they held for the game. The Ravens ran 60 offensive plays and had 24 first downs. That's a pretty significant ratio. It's not approaching 50%. My guess is it's probably in the 42 to 41% range, maybe a little less than that. Feel free to punch that up on a calculator if you want. I didn't think to do that before recording the video here. So one thing I want to talk about where I feel like you kind of have to is the refs. They had an impact today, again. And there's a level or a layer to this that I don't really want to believe. I'm not sure I'm prepared to believe it, but I'm going to give you the idea anyway. There are some times, pending the outcome of a play, the NFL, the refs, can just wipe it away and give a team a first down or remove it. Fine. As television watchers, as fans, people watching the broadcast, it helps if you show us the penalty and we can determine for ourselves the validity of it. Today, I felt like out of the penalties that were called today, which was 19 or 20 to my memory recall, I felt like 6 or 8 of them were not replayed. So we had no idea the validity of certain penalties. There was the safety, that's an obvious safety, Matabike's sack on Dak Prescott. That's intentional grounding. That's the call. Tom Brady and the ref in the booth knew it, but they didn't want to cover it too heavily. I'm talking about with about 8 minutes and 30 seconds left in the second quarter. It's 14-3 at this point. Should have been 16-3. That's grounding. There's no eligible receiver in the vicinity. Should have been 2 more points for the Ravens, if you ask me. Things only got worse in the third quarter, and I want to cover it from a progression, third quarter to fourth quarter. I had 8 penalties in the third quarter on the two teams. Now, the Ravens finished with 13 overall. At this point, the differential through 3 games is absurd. The Ravens had 3 penalties in the first half, and they're up 21-6. Then we go out and take a 28-6 lead. At that point, the game slowed to a crawl. I'm comfortable if someone says the refs called more penalties to slow the game down so that more ads could be shown, because with the amount of run plays we were doing, the game's going by too quick. It certainly didn't end quick. It ended super late. In some cases in the third quarter, yes, the flags were on the Cowboys. There was, in fact, the offsetting penalty that I referred to earlier in the second quarter where Wiggins got beat by Lamb. So in some cases it helped us. But We had 13 penalties this week, 10 last week against the Raiders. At this point, if you aren't able to look at it and say there might be some shading going on, I don't know what to tell you. Let's get to some guys that I want to talk about, and then I'll come back to the penalty stuff here at the end and give you a point that I want to make that was mentioned to me by someone who actually does gamble. I do not. So Falele, sure, he didn't impact the team negatively as much as previous weeks on first glance, but we ran the ball 45 times. So his weakness was not put out there as much. He did have a hold on a run play away from him. I thought he had a penalty on a pass pro, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was 72 Voorhees. They occurred in the span of like 2 or 3 plays away from each other. So I don't think it's going to work out long term. I just don't. But apparently we're stuck with him. I do not have a positive opinion about the right guard situation at all. I will be happy to be proven wrong over the course of the rest of the season and when the film comes out on Monday. This one's going to be tough for you to hear as a Ravens fan, and it's not fun for me to play. I don't think Kyle Hamilton's playing very well. I think he looks very inconsistent in coverage. I talked about it a little bit in the coverage video that I did leading up to this game, whereby I think he's staring at the quarterback too much and not defending routes that are there and in or near his coverage area. The one that gets me is allowing the completion to Lemke, the fullback / tight end. That was his first catch, Lemke's first catch. He did have a second one later on that I would not attribute to Kyle Hamilton. I didn't see a replay, so we'll find out. But I didn't think that he looked like he didn't play with the same level of coverage tenacity as Stevens, Humphrey, and Ardarius Washington. If you were just to watch this game and not know the names of the players and talk about coverage skills, Ardarius Washington looked better than Kyle Hamilton. I know he had 12 tackles and he had a quarterback hit. He's on the field the whole game, first of all. I think he should be more of a factor in some of these known passing situations than he is. I understand it's not cool to criticize Kyle Hamilton like it is Marcus Williams. I know he had a back injury coming into it. If you're going to look like that in coverage, and I thought he looked really poor, then maybe you shouldn't be on the field. Maybe you should be sitting out that week. I thought Matabike was held 2 times when it was not called. In fact, I think they did call it twice. In my opinion, he should have had a sack in the end zone. That's grounding. I'm not worried about his ability to make plays, even though I think he only had 1 tackle and 1 quarterback hit. Justin Tucker is clearly struggling. You, as a coach, at some point have to put him in a situation to kick. How do I say this? You don't want his first field goal attempt to be a potential game-winning or game-tying situation in the fourth quarter. As crazy as it sounds for someone of his caliber, with his resume, I think that you've got to get him an early field goal to get his momentum going, almost like a position player on offense that you want to get him the football. It's kind of crazy. If he continues to struggle, I could see the Ravens moving on sooner than we all expect. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not advocating for it to do so, but you can't miss a 46-yard field goal. Not one that I think would put you up 31-6. You just can't. There's no excuse for it. We got guys getting paid a lot of money who are not performing to their level, in my opinion. Stevens and Humphrey, like I said, I thought they were a big factor in how well the defense played. I'm not able to make large-scale assumptions about coverages unless we get a replay. And look, hell, we're lucky to get a replay of the penalties today, where when there's a penalty occurs, there's a distinct stoppage in the play. So there's time to show the replay, and they have all the angles. It's interesting to me that they did not. Maybe that's unintentional. I'm not sure. But anyway, I thought Stevens and Humphrey were very tight in coverage. They gave our pass rush a chance to get there and disrupt Dak Prescott, which they did. We held CeeDee Lamb to 4 catches for 67 yards. Wiggins, it brings me no joy to say that I thought that after the 3rd time he was beat, that he should be off the field. In fact, I said it in the Discord, and I don't think the guys liked it, but I'm just giving my impartial observations on the quality of coverage when Humphrey and Stevens are out there versus Wiggins. Now, at times, we're putting Humphrey in the slot and Wiggins outside on someone else. He got beat on 2 slants, one of which was by Lamb, the forced fumble. He had the DPI for the offsetting penalty. Lamb beat him on a 31-yarder, and I believe it wasn't Tolbert, someone else beat him on a route on the right sideline. To me, there was a point in time where I thought he needed to be off the field. And I understand that you may not enjoy the negativity if you're still listening, but that's just my flat observation based on what I saw, absent any replays. Zach Orr reminds me of where Mike McDonald was. This is very ironic. It almost reminds me of when the Ravens in 2022 had just blown the loss, had just blown a game to the Dolphins, and then the next week I think we went to New England and beat the Patriots. And then week 4 lost to the Bills. Home game, week 5, the ensuing week, against the Bengals. After losing 2 games that we felt like we could have won. Critical game. Here we are. I'm willing to give Orr time to figure it out. That's obvious. But whatever we're doing right now against the pass is not working. This is the worst pass defense in the league in terms of yardage allowed. And most of that is in the fourth quarter of the last 2 weeks. Quarterbacks are now completing 67% of their passes against us, 66.6. I think we've given up the most passing yards in the NFL. Like I said, there's really no need to elaborate. I think the O-line issues on the right side can be hidden in certain situations like the game plan you saw today because we have a superstar running back and a superstar quarterback who can run as well. These issues of coverage can't be hidden. So Zach Orr doesn't get the same benefit, in my opinion. It's saying something that I am so negative about it, yet I still maintain that I can foresee improvement and then by the end of the season, us being sharper defensively. But the reality is right now, we're not. The refs, to revisit that point for a moment, I want to give you some stats and then a little conjecture that a friend of mine who's a gambler, let's put it that way, pointed out to me. So the Ravens have been penalized 31 times to their opponents 15 over the course of 3 games. I don't think we're there yet, but there is a point where it's such a statistical anomaly that you as a Ravens fan and us as Ravens fans are justified in asking the NFL and the refs and whoever will listen, why the heck does this keep happening? Additional to that, if you want to go the conspiracy theory route, I'm not necessarily willing to, but I listened to and I fielded the query, or I fielded the outreach and the possible explanation. Look, we have committed defensive pass interference. We've held on the offensive line. In some cases, not called. But one explanation I received, unprompted, was that the third quarter penalties called on both teams was cover. In that the third quarter, we had 8 penalties, as I explained earlier. That, to my documentation, might have been more. And there were, I don't know if it was evenly distributed. Maybe it was 5-3 or 6-2. But there were some that were called on the Cowboys. I'm not sure if I believe that. But the fourth quarter differential I thought was greater. I didn't track that. Like I said, there was a point in time where I felt resigned to the fact that our defense wasn't going to stop anybody. So let me know if you have any idea what the fourth quarter penalty differential or outcome was. I thought Lamar was spectacular today. The read plays were awesome. We took advantage of the Cowboys' weakness into the boundary to their left side. They didn't adjust as well. I would have liked to have seen us in the pass game counter their adjustment. If you're going to drop the boundary side safety down, or if you're going to make the boundary side defensive end sit and force Lamar to give it, I would like to see us go away from the dual read once we've established it that the defense can't stop it. Basically, let's use that tight end to the front side, to the field, because we need him over there because I don't think our offensive line is blocking really well on that right-hand side. Lamar didn't get pressured today, so that's great. If we can keep him clean, and I think this game plan is an anomaly. We're not going to be able to be this heavy run and beat every team. I think that's clear. But if we can keep him clean and Derrick Henry, we will hurt teams on offense, and maybe we can win a bunch of 28-25 games, 31-28. Derrick Henry was unbelievable. We have to get the right side of the offensive line fixed, improved, whatever word you want to apply. Because let's just say for a moment that we had the same effectiveness and efficiency, the right side of our offensive line in the run game as we do on the left. Derrick Henry ran for 225 today. I mean, he bludgeoned the Cowboys. It was unbelievable. I wonder if McCarry wouldn't be a better option as the right guard with Rosengarten as the right tackle, but it didn't show up today to hurt us in the end. I personally don't think this is our best configuration. Perhaps the film, once the film comes out this week, I'll be proven wrong, but I'm just not a believer in our right guard answer at all. I think that if we're going to improve, it's either McCarry at right guard or it's outside the building. On some level, it's really not fun for me to be real with the fourth quarter difficulties because I see why, as Ravens fans, you disappear when the Ravens lose during the week, meaning disappear, don't engage with content. I had to step away after the game was over, like I explained, and give myself time to be a little bit more balanced. We did some things well. 7 quarterback hits. I'm going to say 3 sacks. Well, there are 3 sacks in the stat column, 2 for Van Noy and 1 that's considered a team sack. Matabike, to me, should have 1 sack in there. We were able to get pressure on the quarterback at times. A distinction I will draw between this year's defense and what I remember from last year is there doesn't seem to be as much balance between the 4-man rushes and the all-out rush concepts, heavy blitz. And we don't seem to be varying who the 4 rushers are. Basically, we're lining up with our 4 rushers, and those are the 4 guys that are rushing. The offense knows who's coming after the quarterback and who's not. A little bit less unpredictable, if you ask me, a little bit less versatility. I would say that appears to be one of the major differences. I thought Ardarius Washington played his butt off today. Kyle Van Noy had 2 sacks. Kyle Hamilton, look, he had 12 tackles. You may think he played better than I did against the pass. No problem. I guess we'll see when the film comes out. The unfortunate thing for this Ravens team is we should be 2-1. And we should be 2-1 sitting here with double-digit wins against the Raiders and the Cowboys. It's okay for us to have that standard. It's okay for us to have that opinion because the talent is there. And that's what makes these fourth quarter collapses so frustrating, is that when a team collapses with this much talent, you have to look at the head coach, the person in charge, and the coordinators, Todd Monken and Zach Orr, and hold them responsible. And they were very fortunate today that we were able to get out with a win, which is ridiculous to say because we dominated that team for 3 quarters, for the better part of 3 quarters, and you shouldn't only have a 3-point win to show for it. So if you don't share my negativity, I understand. Forgive me for it, but I've watched this team enough and believe in the talent that is there on the offensive and defensive side, and I think that they can play far better. Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this reaction to their 28-25 win over the Cowboys in Week 3, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.